Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Barker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello everyone and welcome to AOC Gaming's League of Champions powered by VRRC. Round 3, potentially my favourite Italian track, Imola. My name is Jack Oliphant and alongside me as per usual is the lovely voice of Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, I'm doing rather well and thanks for that, Jack there. You know what, Imola is well for me. You know, one of the tracks of choice, unfortunately some very bad memories in the past of Imola, you know, and actually as of recent in F1 as well. Not a great turn one for George Russell either, was it?
It absolutely wasn't. No, he'd like to forget that little battle with Valtteri Bottas, I'm sure. As you can see tonight, though, the format of this evening's racing is on your screen at the moment. Official practice, they had 60 minutes of it. Well, they've got qualifying for 15 as well. Then 2 races, race 1 and 2, will be 20 minutes apiece. The Ginetta Super Cup is the car of choice this evening, and of course now on your screen you'll be able to see the rest of the League of Champions seasons, I suppose. We've got the Ginetta Super Cup at the moment, the touring car, which is open for entries at the moment for the next 3 weeks, so if you fancy getting yourself on the sim, then by all means the touring cars are the next up. It's a fantastic car to drive, I'm sure Dave will tell you. GT4 Sprint Cup and the Mini JCW will be around for the League of Champions as well, and Dave, it's a brilliant series to be along with.
It really is, and you know, I don't think there's any other esport competitions out there like it. You can see up to a £20,000 prize fund. You know, the prizes it really include for every single championship. First place, one of our top end SR5 chassis, an SR3 for second place, nicely in blue there as we can see, and the third place for a GTF1 seat, and then down over gets our memberships for our VRRC racing. So truly mesmerising prizes for the individual championships, as well as, you know, absolutely major prizes for the overall league as well, which obviously all the championships lead up to. And then anyone who doesn't get a prize is basically put in a draw for also a set of brand new OBP hydraulic pedals. So really as long as you enter, you've got a good chance of winning something, Jack.
You have indeed, and as long as you're entering as well, if you put on a fantastic show, first you may not be winning, you may not be the fastest person out there, but if you're putting on a show and you're showing that you got guts around the circuit, basically, you could be in for a driver of the round prize as well. A Power Max balloting kit, supplied, of course, by Power Max, and for the life of me, the name of the driver who won it last week has gone completely out of my head. Dave, can you help me?
I can indeed. It was Scott Bugner. So newcomer at the championship last round out, did a guest entry, came in, blew everyone's expectations out the window. You know, came in and was right in contention in both races, getting a top 10, a reverse grid, and sure enough was impressive enough for us. And the feedback from the people getting involved in YouTube and commenting, it turned out to be driver of the day.
Yeah, indeed. So it is very important that you make sure that you give us your feedback in the YouTube chat and Facebook chats and wherever else is you're basically watching this from, so you can have your input on who you think driver of the day should be. You can also see that Mugello round 2, that Jack McIntyre was first with Dan Zelos and Jordan Brennan. That was a fantastic second race. But more of that later, because I believe we're about to go to a hot lap of Imola in the Ginetta GT4.
As we cross the line here at Imola, round the bend underneath the bridge, we're going down towards the little left-hand kink before the first chicane, made very famous by Bottas and Russell recently in the huge collision that happened in the F1. You can see we're not going to catch too much of them, the big bollards on the inside of them corners, trying to keep as much momentum through the corner as possible. Down towards the second chicane, you'll see we take quite a lot of entry curb here, trying to make it so we not too tight on the right-hander, using a lot of the track on exit as well. We're going to come down to the hairpin here. I'm going to keep it in third just so I can use the torque on exit, but that's not to say you won't see boys using second gear there. If they can get the traction second gear, it has to have an advantage up this hill, I would have thought. We're going to hang over the crest here, quite blind, very far right, turn in third gear, trying to keep the car nice and straight through the corner. Now, probably the most difficult corner on the track. Into fourth here, we'll get on the throttle just a little bit to balance the car. Down to third into an apex that seems incredibly hard to find when you've got the car hard on the brakes and trying to turn into there. Now down into the last chicane on the track, a really tight chicane, a good overtaking opportunity. Down to third gear and then down to second for the next one. Don't want to run it too wide on that green on the outside there. Sometimes be a little bit slippy. Now, really a hard braking point for me here as well. Down into the second to last corner, big dip on the brakes, just trying to get the car stopped. You can see, take a little bit of exit and almost trying to make these corners into one, even though it's two very distinct corners. If you take a nice shallow line into the apex of one, out wide and then into the apex of two, you can almost use it as one corner, and that is your lap of Imola.
A fantastic tutorial around the Imola track in the Ginetta Super Cup by our very own Dave Marshall there. Hopefully, if anybody's watching this and maybe they're not quite as quick as the drivers that are currently out there on circuit, who are currently qualifying as well, by the way, then you've learned a thing or two already. I know I have, that's for sure, because Dave, even though I couldn't hear the video, Dave was actually talking me through it anyway, so he clearly knows the track like the back of his hand. And, well, we can do a little bit of a recap, Dave, I suppose. Whilst these guys are in their sort of qualifying so early stages of qualifying here before they put in their really fast laps, about last week's efforts, because it was really, as you said before we went live, really, it was the return of Brennan and McIntyre, wasn't it? And they had a fantastic battle in round one at Mugello.
Yeah, it was indeed. I think both, Jordan obviously had tech issues in round one, not the round he wanted. Jack didn't quite have the form that we would usually expect, and they both had a point to prove coming into round two. First round with the success ballast added, after round 1, which saw Ryan Elliot struggle a little bit more than he did in round 1. But as you say, saw Jack and Jordan both progress forward. Scott Bugner was right up there as well. And Maxi Rohrig, yet another really consistent finish, about that sort of just on that podium verge, which actually meant in the championship point standings, Maxi sitting very well indeed after all that's played out. But, you know, last round really has saw the whole championship standings really close up.
It has indeed, and obviously we're on to the second race of the evening, the reverse grid race, and that's an even more fascinating battle between Callum Newsham, who was in the lead by a good 8 seconds for the majority of the race. Right on the final lap, his sim decided to turn off, basically. It didn't quite turn off completely, but the screens went black for about 3 seconds, and if anybody's actually ever driven in a sim before now, well, you know how detrimental it could be to have your basically screen go black for 3 seconds. If you're wondering what it's like, well, go on the motorway. Don't do this, but if you imagine on the motorway doing 100 miles an hour, close your eyes for 3 seconds and it can go badly wrong. That's unfortunately what happened to Callum Newsham. So actually he ended up losing that victory, as we're seeing him on screen now. But it has, what last round has done basically is mix up the championship order a little bit, hasn't it, and given us some new drivers on the podiums and stuff like that. So Ryan Elliott still leads the way in the championship, which means he has 30 kilograms of ballast on board and only 5 points ahead of Jack McIntyre. So we were expecting the return of the Mac. He's certainly up there with 24 kilograms, and that's going to hurt around Imola a little bit as well. Callum Newsham in third place currently, Max Edmondson in fourth, and Maxi Rohrig. You were just saying about Maxi having those consistent finishes. He's just on the precipice of sort of making that next step, isn't he? He needs to gain that 1 or 2 tenths, and maybe he can launch himself into title contention. Well, he's in fifth place at the moment with 12 kilograms. So there's the top 5 run down for you there. But even outside the top 5, I think Dan Zelos took the race victory the second time out of Mugello, didn't he, last time? He's into 7th place in the championship. So, there's drivers everywhere. Jordan Brennan, he's in 8th. Everywhere you look, basically, there's potential for a race victor.
Yeah, there really is. And, I'll go back to Maxi Rohrig. For me, probably the driver of the championship so far regarding consistency and bringing home the points. He's there in 5th place. He's just been bringing it home, and it's meant that he's right in there with contention. For all he's in 5th, he's 1 place behind 4th. 4 points behind 3rd. He's right there, Jack. So, Maxi, yes, it's 5th place, but he's definitely not out of the running to take the overall here. Must point out as well, Ryan Elliott, he's been quite tactical for this round, and we offer a success ballast reduction using VRRC credits that you get when you sign up for League of Champions at the start. So with the certain amount of credits, you can reduce your ballast for one of the rounds. So Ryan has actually decided to take a 25% weight reduction for this round. The only driver I believe to have done so. So actually, for all Ryan would have been on 30 kilograms, we're going to see him actually a lot more competitive than what we initially thought he was going to be.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Worth mentioning for sure. And that's probably why he's only about 0.28 seconds off current pole man, Maxi Rohrig, you've been mentioning quite a lot so far. So Maxi right at the sharp end. And I said he needed to gain that extra tenth or two. Well, maybe he's found it in the form of maybe a slightly reduced weighted car, but also maybe he's just been putting in that practice. Maybe Imola suits him more, and he wasn't so keen on Mazzano or Mugello. We're obviously off to Portimao in round 4, and that's pretty much all the housekeeping I think we've got to do, isn't it, Dave? So we are now 6 minutes and 20 seconds to go in qualifying. Maxi on pole position, Elliot in 2nd place, Jordan Brennan in 3rd, Robbie Stapleford 4th, and Jack McIntyre 5th. Callum Newsham all the way down in 6th at the moment.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Callum just before the race, after his tech issues of last week. And the tech issues actually occurred because he was on his dad's simulator, not his own. So for all he said, it was a lot nicer of a sim, and it was a lot easier to be a lot more consistent. Obviously, when the screen goes black, it isn't so. So he's back on his own rig, but he's finding it quite hard to get that transition back. And he says the wheel's got quite a lot less feel in it. So hence why Callum's maybe just trying to get used to the car again, get up to speed again a bit better. But yeah, Maxi with a great time of 51.2. That's right up there with the times we've seen being put in all week in the service. So a really solid time there by Maxi Rohrig. Jordan Brennan competitive there in third. Ryan Elliott, we know he's going to be competitive. He's been at the top of the timesheets all week. Drivers that we expect to see push up a little bit more. Andy Dorman's being quick. Mick Sutton, actually, a driver that's actually impressed me on the timing sheets regarding his lap times. We expect to see him sort of nudging the top 10 this week. So, yeah, definitely a few drivers lower down that we'll expect to see move up the grid.
Yeah, well, Mick Sutton as well. I mean, that's the sort of area, that 13th place, maybe fighting for top 10, that we are looking at for driver of the day, really, isn't it? Because it's not necessarily who wins, although I think in the first round it was who won. Basically, I think it was Ryan Elliott ended up getting the driver of the round, but that's because he was pretty much perfect throughout the entirety of the evening. But it's not necessarily those who get on the podiums, is it? It can be someone who's fighting for that 5th place, that 10th place, maybe surprising us, maybe they've just drastically improved, their consistency is there, maybe they're just pulling off some absolutely fantastic moves around the outside of people, and we just feel like they deserved it with their clean and respectful racing. So again, Mick Sutton, Laramie, who we're currently on board with, those are the sort of people that we're looking at for these driver of the rounds. And don't forget, you guys in the chat can help us decide the driver of the rounds. What we'll do is we'll take on your considerations on board, and basically me and Dave will decide between us who we think deserves it out of all your suggestions. So please do make sure you're giving us those suggestions. And it's interesting you said about Callum Newsham, because obviously some people may think, oh, well, if you're in a similarly styled rig and there are still triple monitors and you still got a direct drive or a belt-driven wheel or something like that, then it can all feel very similar. But it's amazing, isn't it? Because I used to jump in the real-life cars in the Ginetta G40s, and I would jump from one car to another in the 750 Motor Club for the Burkett 6 Hour just to get some setup times for some of the sort of lesser experienced drivers, and the car would be exactly the same in setup in every single way, apart from they'd have a different wheel and they'd have a different seat in the car, and it would throw me off completely. It would take me a good half an hour to get within a good time from the other car I was jumping in. So it does make a big difference, that feel, doesn't it, Dave?
Yeah, definitely that. For me, it's all about having comfort and familiarity, and to change it at such a late stage, it's quite a drastic thing, really.
It is indeed, yeah. As we're looking at Jordan Brennan now getting a very nice slipstream, a bit of a tactic here in qualifying, because Imola...
This is a lap.
And it is a very good lap as well into second place, and that slipstream can really help, can't it? There are no team orders in this championship. There's no team championship. It's all about driver against driver, and to be honest though, if you get yourself hunkered up behind someone, you're going to gain about 3-4 tenths of a second around Imola.
Yeah, I was actually trying to see which driver that actually was that gave him such a nice tour there. You probably know yourself, Jack. It's not often you get drivers working with you that aren't teammates. I believe it was Kat Impey actually who was helping Jordan get that mega tour down the start-finish line straight, and then unfortunately slightly outbraking herself. But yeah, worked in Jordan's favour, and that's put him right on the front row of the grid. We've seen the way Jordan races. He's a very clean racer, sometimes not aggressive enough, as we've seen before, but a front row with Ryan Elliott and Robbie Stilton behind, I think Jordan will be quite liking his chances here to get away and trying to pull away a bit of a gap there.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jordan Brennan, he's 8th in the championship. He's only got 6 kilograms of ballast on board, and we know that Ryan Elliott has taken a reduced amount of ballast. He's got 25% off the 30 kilograms he had. So if you're out there and better at me than at your mental maths, then you'll be able to tell us what exactly ballast he's got on board, because I can't figure that out in my head quite that quickly. But he's certainly going to be in for a shout. But you have to say that Brennan's car is significantly lighter, even with that 25% reduction, than the cars around him. So he's definitely going to be in for a good shout at getting a good result here.
Yeah, definitely. I believe with 25% weight reduction, it puts Ryan Elliott on almost identical weight to what Jack Mac's got. So, we're using a slightly different ballast system this season, where it's a bit like the British Touring Car point system, where, the higher up you are on the grid, the bigger the gap becomes in the weight of the car. So, hence why it goes 30, 24, 18 and so far down, until you sort of get into 5th, 6th place, and then it goes down in small increments. So really the idea being that, it makes it a lot tighter up in them podium spots, doesn't, penalise the drivers that are sort of just breaking into the top 10 too hard.
No, by the looks of it, the top 4 currently not setting any quicker times, and the checkered flag is about to drop. They will be able to finish the lap that they're on, I believe. Jack McIntyre has set a green Sector 1 and the Sector 3, but Callum Newsham we're currently having a look at. He's got a green Sector 2 under his belt. Let's see what he can make out of Sector 3. Sector 1 wasn't quite quick enough. He's got quite a big jump to make if he's going to try and overtake Jack McIntyre into that 5th position, and I don't think he's quite been able to make it either. Dorman's in the pits along with Press in the sort of 17th position. Everybody else still out there trying to put a good lap in. Alex Toth-Jones has set a couple of green sectors as well in the first 2. He's about to come across the line. In fact, no, he's not about to come across the line. Apologies, but he's got a fair old whack to overtake even Max Edmondson, hasn't he? 0.4 of a second. The top 7 covered by less than a second.
Yeah, but I think Imola for me is one of them tracks that, especially off the start, it's quite a difficult track to sort of make any progress forward on. You know, it's a lot of sort of sweeping bends that relies on the car to be set up nice and early, and unfortunately you get stuck in a bit of a train. But what that can mean is you get a lot of bunching near the start of the races, and any driver, as we say that, look at Alex Toth-Jones put it up in the 5th place ahead of Jack McIntyre, pushing all the grid further back down. So a really strong performance there by Alex, and he'll be really happy with that. But as I was saying, if we get that sort of bunching up at the start of the race, any driver that's brave enough to really go for them overtakes or them deep lunges can see huge gains there, but it's a huge risk.
It is indeed. Andy Dorman, he's in the pits. My apologies. Jack McIntyre, he's just gone quicker than Alex Toth-Jones into 5th position, putting himself 0.3 of a second behind Robbie Stapleford. And, as we said before, it's now the top 8 who are currently gapped by less than a second. Toth-Jones has finished his laps. So it's really only Callum Newsham that we can keep an eye out on that top 8. Here is, I believe, Thorpe in 16th position. Just have a look. Don't know if he's on any quicker time. He's put 2 green sectors in. It's not quick enough to put himself up, and Callum Newsham clearly doesn't think he's on a lap, so he comes into the pit. So what you're looking at now, David, is pretty much your grid, isn't it? With Maxi Rurig on pole position, Jordan Brennan in 2nd place, Elliot in 3rd, Stapleford 4th, Jack McIntyre rounding out the top 5.
Yeah, you know what? That's a performance that Jack needed there. Alex just managed to pip him, and on the very last lap, Jack yet again just came in and managed to have that little bit more of an advantage just to get back that 5th place, right behind Robbie Stapleford, his teammate, which is exactly what they'll both want. They'll both want to work together, progress through the grid, and, you know, basically not trip each other over. So that'll be a really interesting battle to watch.
And I believe we can potentially have a chat with our pole man, can't we? Because I believe that's what we're going to try and do. Maxi Rurig is in the interview waiting room, so we'll see if we can drag him in. Maxi, congratulations on that pole position. That is really going to help you sort of try and make a mark in this first race, isn't it? Maxi, are you there? I'm just waiting on Maxi Rurig here, Dave, but I'll pose the question to you, I suppose, in a slightly different way. He needs that, doesn't he, on pole position, Maxi, to move his way up the championship orders, potentially?
He doesn't. You know, I was saying in the first 2 rounds, he's been a solid, consistent finisher for the championship, and this is really starting to prove now where he's got the weight advantage here. He's not coming with too much weight. He's coming, put it on the front row of the grid, and this is where he can really get his head down. We've seen how clean of and calculated of a driver he is. If he can get his head down, not look in the mirror, not get Brennan alongside him off the start line, then hopefully he can just go away and pull away.
Yeah, we'll give one last opportunity to the Maxi. Are you there, Maxi? No, well, maybe if he finishes in the top 3, we'll have a chat to Maxi Rurig afterwards. But I suppose the next thing to do, before we go into race 1, is have a chat about the VRRC Drivers Academy, isn't it, Dave? Because it's a new championship-style thing that's coming up, and basically, it's a coaching opportunity as well as racing, isn't it? With the Formula 4, Audi TT, Mazda MX-5, and the Caterham 420R. Yeah,
so we realised we were getting a lot of drivers joining our community and saying, you know, I'd really like to get involved in the racing aspect of things, but the drivers that you've got on the grid are just a little bit too quick for me. Is there anything you do that sort of gives me a bit more of an entry into sim racing? Hence why we came up with the academy. So it's a great platform for anyone who feels like, you know, they're a novice to the sport, or they don't feel they're quick enough, and they really want to help get faster. You know, it's provided with coaching throughout the week, a Q&A, and, you know, help from all the pros. So it's a really great opportunity to get involved in entry-level sim racing, where you're not going to have the pros that spend 50 hours a week practicing coming in and just taking every single win.
What's the most valuable thing as well from a person who had to learn all this within a year, basically, and how to set up a sim, and AC is relatively complicated as well compared to some other sims, is the fact that you get all that tech help as well, isn't it? So if you're a bit worried about, if you see the cars on your screen, and obviously you're looking at the MX-5 at the moment, but if you see all the different 4 cars, you might be thinking, I don't even know how to install them onto the program. Well, you guys are also here to help out with that side as well.
Yeah, definitely that. The whole idea and the ethos behind the academy is all about helping the community grow and build up a reputation to help the drivers get into sim racing, not just to reward the ones that are particularly massively fast.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are interested, then by all means message a VRRC, Rich Hayden, or Dave Marshall, in fact. I'm sure we'll be helping you out, or if you just message the Facebook group or anything like that, they'll be able to help you out, shoot you over to the Discord, and you can see all the information on there as well. But some fantastic cars there, a mixture of front-wheel drive, high-ish aerodynamics in the Formula 4 car. The Caterham obviously is a fantastic car to go, not drifting, but it teaches you about car control. The MX-5, again, is basically the encompass of everything. If you can drive an MX-5 well with the rear-wheel drive, you can pretty much drive anything well. And the same with the sort of mini touring car that is the Audi TT Cup car. And, well, we'll be going into race 1 in a couple of minutes, won't we, Dave? And I think by the looks of the grid, it's all very close. A couple of the drivers only separated by less than a tenth of a second. I believe that was Stapleford and Brennan, potentially. So it's certainly going to heat up, isn't it, in the first couple of laps?
Yeah, and this is where I think Ryan Elliot here might be feeling quite vulnerable. He's got Brennan in front of him that knows he's not particularly aggressive. He's not going to do anything stupid with Maxi Rohrig. Then will probably quite happily go side by side through the first corners. But look who's behind him, Robbie Stapleford and Jack Mack. Both two drivers that will want to get through that grid, and Ryan Elliott's right in that sandwich. It leaves you really in that position where you want to get through the pack, but if there's not a door, you're left as a sitting duck. So really interested to see how Ryan will get out of this pickle. But also, Alex Toth-Jones with a really good, strong qualifying there with Callum Newsham, the championship contender, in 7th place. So definitely going to be watching Callum on how he progresses through the grid as well.
Hell of a good looking grid as well, isn't it, with those liveries? Especially we saw them rotating in the sort of warm up in the video as the countdown was coming down. But actually, just looking at this sort of aerial shot, looking back, there's a car in the pit lane. Oh, no, I know who that is. That doesn't matter. But there's a hell of a grid looking at us right now, isn't it? It's fantastic to see so much effort being put into the liveries.
Yeah, it is indeed. It's all about customization. It's all about allowing to represent either your sponsors or have your own look on the grid and have a bit of identity, which is, half of what racing's about.
It is indeed. Yeah, we've got a countdown now towards our first race of the evening, 20 minutes. Remember, obviously, the second race is a reverse grid, isn't it, Dave? That always mixes things up.
It is, and I'm going to put you under the bus. What's your predictions for the start here?
I think Jordan Brennan has shown that he is quite feisty. Maybe not feisty enough to get ahead of Maxi Rohrig, but I think Maxi really needs to pull some points on the board. Whether or not he'll feel the pressure is another thing, but as the lights start to come on, we're about to see whether he does take the pressure as the engine notes rise and we're racing. It's a good start by Maxi Rohrig and Jordan Brennan. Pretty much everyone's got a clean enough start there as we shoot towards the first corner now. Maxi Rohrig does have his nose ahead of Jordan Brennan. He's going to go hard defensive into the first chicane. They're all queuing up behind to try and make a move as Ryan Elliott. Oh no, Jordan Brennan's gone on the outside. Maxi Rohrig's got too much speed off. What a move by Jordan Brennan into the lead of this race. Ryan Elliott in 3rd place. Johnny Stapleford in 4th. Alex Toth-Jones has got ahead of Jack McIntyre.
Was not expecting that move that early from Brennan there. And also, look, Alex Toth-Jones ahead of Robbie Stapleford, ahead of Jack McIntyre, and putting on the defence. And here's Callum Newsham going up for the inside of Alex Toth-Jones. That was a very brave move, and I think that was someone we saw, I believe it was Andy Dorman maybe dropping down in the gravel trap just in the background there, Jack.
Yeah, I think it was, but Maxi Rohrig still trying to hunt down Jordan Brennan, but he's going to be caught up more than chasing the race leader down, because it looks like Ryan Elliott wants to get his elbows out and get into 2nd place. That's Alex Toth-Jones going wide. Here comes Robbie Stapleford trying to follow him through as well, and Rohrig's gone from 1st down to 4th within half a lap, and it's going to get worse for him.
I was trying to see which driver was that slid out there. It was Maxi Rohrig. This is not playing into his hands here. Max Edmondson up into 5th place already. This has been a really crazy start with place position changes. Callum Newsham up into 4th place already.
Yeah, great start by Callum Newsham. Some drivers maybe not having the best start. Obviously, Maxi Rohrig. Jack McIntyre slipping back 1 position. Alex Jones did make a good start, but then the second half of this lap, it's all going to be Pete Tong for him. Mick Sutton qualified in 13th, still in 13th, and that sort of lower end of the battle as well seems to have been just as spicy as the top end here, but a fantastic start. Can't get enough of Jordan Brennan's getaway on that green flag.
Yeah, you know what? That's exactly what he needed to do. He needed to get that break. You know, he's had the pace, but he knows Ryan's got great pace as well. So that breakaway allowed him to pull away from the rest of the grid like that. As long as he can keep his head down, not look in the mirror, not let the pressure get to him, this is a great start for Jordan.
It is indeed, as we're looking at Johnson going up the inside of Press. By the looks of it, made that nice and move nice and easily done, but runs a little bit wide. And who is that? It's Maxi Rohrig's gone off the road, isn't it? Rohrig has gone from 1st down to 14th in a lap and a half. Jack McIntyre chasing down this leading, well, it's not quite the leading amount of cars because Jordan Brennan's just absolutely checked out. Robbie Stapleford on the inside, and this is fantastic racing, all for 2nd place at the moment because Jordan Brennan, who's just going through your shot now, is away with the fairies as Callum Newsham and Rob Elliot go side by side. Ryan Elliot even, not Robbie Elliot.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very brave move for Callum to go around the outside, but I think he's going to make it stick. Max Edmondson up the inside, it's 3 abreast. Ryan Elliott's gone. Oh, Max Edmondson's took out, I believe, was that... I don't know which driver that was. It's Robbie Stapleford in the wall. Robbie Stapleford has gone. Ryan Elliott's managed just about to hold on to that car. That's been an absolute disaster. You know, we saw Robbie actually have a rather big crash in the previous round as well. So this is not suiting Robbie. Unfortunately, completely the innocent bystander in all of that collision.
Yeah, actually, it's a shame we can't get replays, really, because we would love to have another look at that one. But what we can focus on is the fact that Max Edmondson is now in 2nd place, isn't he? And that's amazing, considering he's jumped a handful of places up the order, basically taking advantage of that scuffle. Wasn't involved in the slightest, got a bit lucky, maybe right place, right time. Ryan Elliott in 3rd place, Jack McIntyre in 4th, Alex Jones has gone from having a good start to a poor start to now into 5th place, which is obviously a 2-place advantage from where he started. So a brilliant start for him in the end. Callum Newsham all the way down in 8th place now. Robbie Stapleford in 14th, Maxi Rohrig in 15th. So some huge sort of repercussions just from that little bit of content. And there's more repercussions as Carroll and Soft Jones end up hitting each other off. Callum Newsham goes back through 2 of them and gets his way up to 5th place.
Yeah, so I was just looking there. This is where Robbie Stapleford, even though he's dropped down the order here, he needs to just sort of wipe away, get a clean slate of a head on, and really get his head down to get that 10th place so he can get that reverse grid. If he can get that reverse grid, that's going to give him a really good chance for still a good points haul in this round, because otherwise, if he ends up off the back of that, it's not an ideal scenario for him.
It's always so difficult, though, isn't it, to get that clean slate of a head, isn't it? Where you want to sort of, you're angry, the red mist descends a little bit maybe, and you start overdriving the car. It's a lot harder than you think to just sort of forget it and move on. Yeah, it's one of the, you know, it's one of the things where it's incredibly hard to coach. You know, it's a person's personality that you're trying to almost make into, you know, sort of cooler them off slightly. Some people are the opposite. Some people don't have enough aggression to really dig deep and come back. There's Kenny Press almost trying to go backwards down the escape row, which was an interesting angle there. I tell you what, Max Edmondson has just lost out to 3rd place to Ryan Elliott. Ryan Elliott's gone up into 2nd, so I'm not quite sure what's happened there. And actually, saying that, Jack McIntyre is all over the back of Max Edmondson as well. In fact, he's left the door open. There's a little tap. Surprised Jack Mac wasn't a little bit more aggressive there and forced his way through. But I tell you what, all of this little battling is absolutely perfect for Jordan Brennan. I was just about to say, Jordan Brennan is a good 8.3 seconds up the road from Ryan Elliott, who at the moment is looking to extend his championship lead from the drivers directly around him in the championship anyway. Look at this. Jack McIntyre going past Max Edmondson, using that slipstream to great effect. And it looks like he's slotted into 3rd. He doesn't even have to try and really defend it into the first chicane. He gets it done nice and efficiently and he keeps that position for him. But hello, Edmondson's coming back at him. McIntyre having to go defensive. Edmondson on the outside. No, McIntyre goes back onto the racing line to try and take as much momentum as he can through the through the second chicane. Not running too wide there, the Sancho Simsport car, but he does come back on the track a little bit scruffy there. McIntyre going defensive, braking hard, trying to keep it on the apex, but the switchback is potentially on for Edmondson.
Got him. Edmondson's got him up the hill. I saw that. He just had a better exit up the hairpin, and I believe he's side by side, but going into the left-hander. If Edmondson can keep the commitment here, which he has, Jack's got no other option to tuck in. A great move there by Max Edmondson. Well calculated. It took about 3 corners for him to set it up, but well executed. But this has allowed Ryan Elliot just to extend that gap, and this will be taking off the pressure of the championship leader.
2.4 seconds is the gap now, in fact, between Edmondson and Ryan Elliot, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop the battle for third place here, because Callum Newsham has now all of a sudden popped up. I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but it is slightly surprising considering we saw him go off the track in such dramatic fashion only 2 laps ago. Look at this mid-pack battle, the fight for top 10. Stapleford at the moment has got that top 10 position as well. Toff Jones in 9th. Johnson and then Maxi Rurig as well, slightly further in the background. We're now looking at Stapleford, who's right in the middle of this battle, but I think he's done exactly what you said here, Dave. He's gotten himself in the right mindset, gone forward, thought I can still resurrect some points out of this as long as I keep it clean.
Yeah, and look who's got himself up into 8th place from 13th place on the grid. Mick Sutton, a fantastic drive.
I can't believe it. It'd be ironic, wouldn't it, if we used Mick Sutton as an example of driver of the day, and then he went and got driver of the day. We'll be calling hacks there, won't they? But trust me, it is pure coincidence. He's doing a fantastic job in 8th place. He's just about holding off Alex Toff Jones here, isn't he? He's still, even though he probably knows, the drivers around him now are slightly quicker. Look at that. The defensive line isn't even really that taken that aggressively, is it? He's more towards the racing line and just keeping Alex Toff Jones honest as Stapleford. We're looking on board on, and now he's got that wheel up the inside. Who's the last of the late breakers? Who's brave enough to do it? And it is Stapleford. Toff Jones still there though. Oh, I thought there was going to be contact. Indeed, there may well have been contact because both of them went wide. Stapleford's come off a lot worse. No, he hasn't, because Toff Jones has been T-boned around, and I think that's Maxi Rurig who is involved, and maybe Dorman as well. Mick Sutton's still in 8th place, by the way. He's driven away from this little fight. Yes,
that looked to me like that was just a case of Robbie Stapleford going nice and quick up the inside of Alex, but Alex still holding his nose round the outside of Robbie Stapleford, and then Robbie basically going for the apex on the brakes into the right-hander when Alex's nose was still there. Unfortunately, a little bit of a racing incident, I would have probably said. Yes, in hindsight, Alex could have backed out and tucked back in, but, you know, 6 and 2 threes really, I think, in that respect. But Mick Sutton, as I said, 8th place, and you can see by the damage on his car, there isn't really that much at all. So actually, Mick Sutton with an incredibly clean and impressive drive all the way up to 8th place with a, 5 places ahead of where he qualified.
Yeah, and apparently, I just had a look. Maxi Rurig, apparently, he touched the wall at the chicane, which is why he ended up going so far down the order in the first place. So he's actually on a massive recovery drive right now. And currently, he's in pole position for race number 2, isn't he? Now, he's got Robbie Stapleford, who has been clearly very quick as Edmondson and McIntyre. We said it wasn't over, and we were absolutely correct. A little touchdown means Edmondson has had to go onto the grass and avoiding action. Here comes Callum Newsham. Gonna be a very tight thing if he does manage to get it. He had to just come off the throttle there though, didn't he? He had to give up the move, even though he had the overspeed. It wasn't quite the right place to do it. He can bide his time well. Maybe Edmondson's got a little bit more damage. Maybe Callum could take advantage of it a little bit further down the line. McIntyre though, he was going defensive, but he did come across just a touch.
He did, and that's where yet again that might have worked either in his favour or not in his favour. It's very risky for a driver to push his back end across the nose of a car that's behind him. It's lending itself to turn a car. But as I said, we're going into a left-hander there. Max Edmondson was on the outside of Jack, going into a left-hander, so Jack was always turning out of the way the car was trying to turn against him. It was a great defensive move. As we see, Jack might actually get very squirrely coming out of the uphill section there, as far as onto the grass. But yeah, as you were saying before there, Jack, Max Edmondson's car does seem to be quite heavily damaged there, with a wall hit or something along the lines of that. And Callum Newsham's car looks quite a lot healthier. So I wouldn't be surprised whether on the straight line speed here with the difference in the air, or whether Callum can simply pull past. In fact, he might even go for the move up the inside on the brakes into the second to last corner, which he has indeed. A great move on the brakes there. This is where Max Edmondson probably won't put too much of a fight here. Work with Newsham to try and close the gap onto the back of McIntyre.
If anybody's forgotten as well, by the way, we do have a race leader that we haven't once looked at since he got the race lead. Jordan Brennan, he's 10 seconds ahead of everybody else. But the reason why we haven't seen him is because we're looking at fantastic action, mainly involving Edmondson as well for the majority of this race. He's been right in the thick of it, even if he has been slowly going backwards because of it. But at the moment, he's recovering a place ahead of Callum Newsham. This time, there was no contact going into the first chicane, so he managed to make it very clean, as Newsham will have to try and do that all again. McIntyre is checking out slightly. Ryan Elliot has definitely checked out, and John Brennan's already on the flight. He's checked out the hotel, that's who.
Yeah, definitely. And the other battle I'm keeping an eye on here, actually, it's just gone and happened there. Robbie Stapleford up to 10th place, up to 9th place now. Actually, just as I'm commenting on that, yeah, Robbie Stapleford up to 9th. It's nice to see a driver that, you know, was very, very unlucky to get put between a pendulum effect. I believe it was actually Ryan Elliott who was in the pendulum, and unfortunately Robbie was behind them and caught the tail end of a rather big crash. So it wasn't nice to see Robbie drop down the pack through none of his own fault again, but he's managed to crawl himself back up to 9th place. So this is looking really good for Robbie, for a good reverse grid and a really good result in the second race.
Maxi Rurig is only about 0.8 of a second away from Mick Sutton as well in 10th, so we could be seeing Maxi Rurig potentially snatching that pole position for race number 2, as long as he can keep it clean and consistent, which has been, whether or not it's been Maxi's own fault is a completely different question. I think he's been in the wrong place at the wrong time for a lot of it. Maybe the first incident where he touched the wall is potentially, you know, it's no one else's fault, put it that way, but he needs to make sure he's getting his head down and start putting in some consistent laps, because he really needs to gain the place of Mick Sutton in the next 7 minutes, doesn't he? Otherwise, he can kiss race 2 goodbye, unfortunately, and he gets another shot at that pole position, which he qualified for so well and fully deserved it as well. He just wasn't able to convert it. Brennan with a fantastic move around the outside of chicane number 1. I'm just having to stutter on my words there, because Dorman, I'm amazed he even managed to catch that as he was coming onto the start-finish straight.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a quite a difficult position. Obviously, Robbie Stilt's got a lot more speed than Dorman here, but you know the points that you actually gain for sort of 9th, 8th, and 7th, the points gap between them places is not that great. So what Robbie's actually done there for the second race, which is reversed, means actually he's took himself from being on the front row to then being on the second row. So this is where, as a driver, you've always got to try and calculate whether or not it's worth just sitting back and maybe holding position to benefit you in the second race, rather than potentially getting tapped in the second race and ending up going backwards again. So a very interesting strategy there, but as we saw, Robbie Stiltford on that previous lap was about 3 seconds quicker than Dorman, so there was obviously a very clear difference in pace there. But as I say, just because there's a pace difference, maybe the strategy could have worked out slightly differently.
It is interesting, isn't it, as we see a driver getting all kinds of crossed over there. I think that was Carroll going into the corner and just got a little bit of switcheroo as he touched the dirt. But yeah, I mean, there is that strategy, isn't it, which, I mean, people trying to play the reverse grid almost. And I remember I covered for a long time, before I covered this on the Tuesday, I covered another championship on a Tuesday on iRacing, and we used to have a reverse grid spinning wheel that would choose any number at random, basically, between, I think it was 12 and 30, or however many cars were actually on the grid. And there was always a driver who used to try and finish in like 25th if he had a crash or something, because he'd try and play the reverse grid, even though it was completely random, unlike this one where you can predict that it is going to be the top 10. So that was a bit questionable what he used to do, but what you were saying right then is bang on the money, isn't it, for a legitimate strategy. And Maxi Rurig, though, deciding that he doesn't want to listen to you anyway, Dave, because he wants to put himself on the second row of the grid by overtaking Carroll.
Yeah, and you know what? This is where, for me, I'll be looking at, you know, how far 11th, 12th and 13th, what lap times them are running, even 10th place, and having a look at that. And maybe sometimes it's just slightly safer just to sit behind that car and guarantee you front row on the reverse grid, and then you can, make sure you definitely get a good race too. To then pull yourself back up into that mid-pack is always a bit of a risk, but we've got to remember Jordan Brennan, who at the moment is leading the race. I don't want to do a commentator's curse, but leading the race is going to have to be right back at the full reverse grid, and he's got all them cars to try and pull through. So it's definitely strategy related, but I think I'll be tempted to just hang back a little bit more and try and get yourself a better reverse grid position when you can see the pace advantage you've got on the rest of them.
Yeah, Jordan Brennan, he's pretty much had this sewn up unless he pulls a Callum Newsham, doesn't he, and ends up just having it thrown away and finishing just about on the podium. Alex Choff Jones, he's looking, is that going to go 3 wide? I thought that was going to be very ambitious. Last time we saw 3 wide on this race, it didn't end so well. It was about this section of the track we're at now as well, with the sort of pendulum effect, the domino effect ended up making a lot of people's race a hell of a lot worse. But Choff Jones, he's having to fight through here, and I think there's no denying, isn't it? He's quicker than the drivers ahead. He's desperate to get ahead of them within the next 3 minutes, but he's certainly putting his elbows out to do such a thing.
Yeah, he is, and actually, there's a little bump there. I believe that was Paul Laramie or possibly Kenny Press just up the inside. It's a very, very tight chicane that with realistically 1 line through. It's not really wide enough for 2 cars, so it was very brave for 2 cars to go side by side in there, and actually quite strange that the inside car lost out on that. It's quite an unusual thing, Jack, there. But one thing I will notice is that Jordan Brennan, for all that he's winning, he is definitely not hanging around. He's just set a 51.2, which is right up at the top end of the lap times that we saw in qualifying. So Jordan is definitely not hanging around here, even though he's got a very, very comfortable lead above second place Ryan Elliot. Very impressive, and getting that extra point for the fastest lap.
I was going to say the fastest lap point is probably what he's pushing for here, but not only that, he hasn't got any slipstream or anything, and a lot of these drivers, the rest of the field basically, have had slipstream at one point or another, but still, the top speed of Jordan Brennan is only 0.2 miles an hour down on Jack McIntyre, which is sensational when you think about it, isn't it, really? Jordan Brennan, all on his own, no aero assistance at all, is still the second fastest man in top speed on the entire Imola circuit right now, which is, as I said, amazing. He's comparing it to Jack McIntyre, who's in third, who has been behind Ryan Elliott, he's been behind Max Edmondson and Callum Newsham to try and use that slipstream to get past all of them. Hasn't quite had it pull off yet, and Brennan is still that close to his top speed is quite sensational. In fact, he's the only other driver to be in the 150 mile an hour mark. Everybody else is 149.
Yeah, and if I'm honest, I might contradict you here a bit, Jack, so sorry about this, but I think looking at it, Jack's in a safe enough area where he's not in any slipstream, but I wonder whether this is damage we've seen at the start of the race. We saw Ryan Elliott have that big pinball effect, we saw Max Edmondson have the big collision, so I wonder whether it's slightly more damage on them cars that's really limiting their top speed. Obviously, Jordan Brennan, I believe, hasn't had any collisions this entire race, so he's got a pristine car, aero working exactly the way it should, and I think that's probably why we're seeing the slightly higher speeds. Jack Mack the same. Look at his car, hardly any damage on it. I think that's probably why we're seeing them slightly higher top speeds.
Contradiction welcome when you're making fantastic points like that, Dave. You're the one who is the driver coach after all, not me. We are about 20 seconds away from the end of this race, though, isn't it? And Brennan we haven't seen much of. Elliot, to be fair, we haven't seen that much of, have we, since he's got into second place. Edmondson, I'd say, was probably the most dramatic driver throughout the entirety of the race. I mean, we saw a lot of action involving him. In the end, he's sort of settling for fourth place as Callum Newsham was just dropped off a little bit in fifth. Luke Weston up to sixth. I'm not entirely sure where Luke Weston actually started this race, but it certainly wasn't as high as sixth place. So a fantastic drive by him so far. Looks like Stapleford, Rurik have both rescued something from this. Toff Jones hasn't really. He's down in 13th still after that sort of coming together right at the end. But the star of the show has to be with probably one of the best moves, in fact, in the entire race. And it's the only move he's had to make. And it is Jordan Brennan, who's about to take the checkered flag for round one here at Imola in the Ginetta Super Cup, AOC Gaming League of Champions, powered by VRRC. Jordan Brennan with the victory. Ryan Elliott is going to be coming across the line in second place, but he's a full 12 seconds back from Brennan's checkered flag. Jack McIntyre is going to take third, but I have to say Ryan Elliot will be probably the driver with the most pleased from that one, won't he? Because he's extended that championship gap.
Yeah, you know what? Ryan Elliott will be thinking, you know what? After being in that pendulum effect between two cars and then ending up, coming home in second place, that has to be probably, the biggest relief for Ryan Elliott to come away with a huge points haul there.
It will be indeed. As we're just watching the other cars come across, it will be Carroll on pole position, won't it? In 10th place, Stapleford and Rurik were a little bit too far up to take advantage of the pole, but they'll still be obviously in a decent position for race number 2, which will be coming up in about 6 or 7 minutes' time. In fact, though, we have got an interview for you, Dave. Take it away.
Yeah, so I'll jump down into the interview booth. We'll go to our P3 man, Jack Mac. Difficult start of the race there. It was a very busy start of the race, and I take you had front row seats to see the huge shunt going into the uphill section.
Yeah, that was a little bit lively, wasn't it? I could kind of see it all brewing in front of me, so I just hung back a little bit and let it all. Let chaos ensue, and did manage to pick my way through it, thankfully. Yeah, not a bad race. I've not really got the pace here. They've got a lot of ballast, although Ryan shouldn't underestimate how quickly Ryan's going. He's only got 1 kilo less than me, so that's hardly an excuse. But yeah, struggling a little bit, but yeah, chuffed with third place after all that. Yeah, well, that just sort of shows your championship racecraft. Even though you've acknowledged you haven't maybe got the outright pace, to come home and make sure that you maybe on the brakes sooner when you see things happen in front of you has helped you, come away with, I could be wrong in saying this, Jack, almost a pristine car there at the end. Yeah, just about. Maybe a few of the curbs might have done a bit of damage, but yeah, just really try to keep it clean. I think I had a lot better pace last week and used that to the advantage during the races, but yeah, when it's not there this week, it's just about keeping clean, so I'll try and do that again in the next race.
Yeah, well, it's still a great point haul, and well done on race 1, Jack, and we'll look forward to seeing what you can do in race 2.
Cheers, Dave. Thank you.
And we'll move on to our P2 finisher, Ryan Elliott. After that start, you must be fairly relieved to come home in P2 after that one.
I really thought it was all over for a second, Dave. I've got tag on the rear. I'm not sure who by. I need to watch the replay back, but that sent me into, I think it was Callum Newsham. It was just tiny bit unnecessary, I feel, but I came out with a big slide, pointing the right way, kept going, managed to get back ahead of Max Edmondson and to, only finish 1 place behind Jordan, who's also got a lot less weight, and only lose 3 points to him is really important, as well as obviously finishing ahead of everyone else. So just look to have a clean second race, go forward. That's all I can do.
Yeah, well, we saw it in race 1. It looks like a very chaotic start of the race. We were saying Imola is all about the flow, and there's a lot of corners that are sort of, you've got to sort of take quite shallow, so it doesn't lend itself to being a track at the start. It's really easy to overtake. I take that's what you saw. Was it very busy trying to get through the pack, and how do you think that'll play going into race 2?
If it's as busy as it was in race 1, I just need to let everyone else have their battles and just let everyone else take each other out, because I think everyone got a little bit too racy, in my opinion. There was obviously I think some people should have just maybe been a bit calmer, maybe settled in, and we could have gone a little bit further forward and not lost 10 odd seconds to Jordan. But everyone's racing for themselves. I don't expect them to work with me, and just focus on myself, go forward. Hopefully Jordan might like to work with me on this one. We can get up to a podium again.
Well, we'll go and have a chat with him now and see whether that's the plan. Jordan, Brennan, I think you're probably wondering what everyone else is talking about from your point of view. It was all job done on turn 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, very lonely race that. It was a good start around the outside of Maxi, but yeah, I have no idea what happened behind.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, even though you had such a clear advantage on track with opening up, I think, nearly 12 seconds of a lead, you definitely weren't hanging around with taking fastest lap and, right up there with what the times were in qualifying.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy with qualifying. I lost half a second in the last section of my fastest lap, so it should have been a good time. But yeah, I was pushing in that race then. I had a few offs, so.
Well, that's what we like to hear, and good luck going into race 2. But congrats on race 1 there, John.
Cheers, thanks.
And that was our top 3, where I think we're about to go into a very quick advert before the start of race number 2. So keep it pinned to basically wherever you're watching this from with VRRC, because we'll be back for race number 2 here at Imola. Hello everyone and welcome back for race number 2, the reverse grid race for the AOC Gaming League of Champions second season, powered by VRRC. The third round of the Ginetta Super Cup part of the championship, and the second race of that particular evening, and all that out the way basically. It was a fairly stunning race. Race number 1, very elbows out, shall we say, but not for Jordan Brennan, who currently starts in 10th position. The top 10 has been reversed, which means that Andy Carroll is on pole position, with Andy Dorman in second, Maxi Rurig this time in third. He started on pole, had a bit of a mare in race number 1, but did recover to try and get the reverse grid good start, so keep an eye on him. As the lights start to come on, we'll be about to hear the engine notes rise, and then we'll be away racing for the second time this evening. It's going to be Andy Carroll on pole position. How is the start? It's a bit of a shake by Andy Dorman. That could open the door for Rurig in third place to try and get a better start than he did in race number 1. Although, to be fair, he led into the first corner. It was straight after that it all went a bit wrong for him. And Carroll keeps his racing line and doesn't really fear getting overtaken at all by Dorman. Stapleford's overtaking Rurig. There's Luke Weston just grass cutting across the circuit. We had a chat during the advert saying maybe he's a driver to look out for driver of the day, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to be his way this time round. Callum Newsham up to 5th.
Yeah, definitely. It was a fair dramatic start, a very brave move by Robbie Stapleford going around the outside of Maxi Rurig, but good race respect by both drivers. Robbie just backing out a little bit from the apex, allowing Maxi to hold his line, and he's found himself still tucked right in behind Maxi with another opportunity to attack him again.
Yeah, so let's see how they crack on. Ryan Elliott up the inside. No, of Jack McIntyre. Maybe just showing his nose to try and put McIntyre off, the Zancho Simsport driver. It is still Carroll Dorman and then Maxi Rurig, but it looks like they're trying to swap positions up ahead. Rurig trying to overtake, but he's gone spinning wide. No, he hasn't. He's caught it. And only just, well, he is going to lose out on a fair few places, don't get me wrong, but it's still a fantastic save from what could have been an awful lot worse. Carroll leading the way still, but a bit further now. Stapleford in second place. Callum Newsham up to third. He's having a fantastic start here. Ryan Elliott in second place. He extended the championship lead in race number 1. He's trying to do exactly the same. Elliot's got Brennan for company just behind, and there's a whole host of very quick drivers here, Dave, trying to fight for this 5th position. Up the inside goes Elliot, and there's contact between himself and Rurig. McIntyre goes through, Toff Jones goes through as well, as I think Maxi Rurig, Dorman and Brennan have lost out.
That was the lunge of lunges. I'm going to say, Alex Toth-Jones, I think he just did about 3 cars into one corner. As there's a change for lead, this is exactly what Robbie Stapleton needed to get past Carroll. We've seen the pace Robbie's got on the likes of Andy Carroll. You know, it was about 2 seconds a lap difference. So we're going to probably see Robbie Stapleton push forward. But look who's coming with him. Callum Newsham there in 3rd place already. If he can get past Carroll as well, job's not done for Robbie yet.
It isn't indeed. So Callum Newsham right onto the back now as Max Edmondson is there. Yet again, he finished 4th in the first race. What can he do this time round? Brennan goes through on Dorman to take top 10. Now, there is no reverse grid to be worrying about because there is no third race to be worrying about. A fantastic switchback here by Edmondson, who saw him do it in the first race. Can he get it done against Callum Newsham? Going into the left-hander up the hill, and indeed he has. He already takes over to the right-hand side to take the racing line to carry so much momentum through. And I believe Carroll is in a little bit of trouble here because Edmondson and Newsham aren't going to hang around because they don't want Elliot to try and catch him back up.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And this is actually a very precarious scenario for Brennan there. Did well there to back out. He's going to put it up the inside, going up the hill. That was a slight tap. He did show the nose there. As we also see Kenny Press do what he did in the previous race, being near the entrance to the track. But as I say, Andy Carroll, 2nd place, really strong performance here. You saw how hectic the start of that race was, and he still found himself with a very clean car and still being very competitive.
He has indeed. He's about to slip down to 3rd place though because there's no defending once Edmondson is up the inside of the penultimate corner, I fear. And I think as long as he can get this clean exit now, he may well be... Well, he's not going to have it all his own way. I think he's going to be under threat by Newsham because the slipstream is so powerful here. Doesn't look like too many drivers have got a massive amount of damage on their cars so far, which is quite nice as well. It means we've had a fairly clean start, even if it has been a touch hectic. I have to say as well, though, I don't think Brennan really... Oh, that's a huge lunge up the inside for Newsham into the first chicane, and it wasn't to be, was it? And I did think that was a bit far back. Ryan Elliott here now to try and take advantage of the fact that Newsham got a poor run, but he's had to just check up through the left-hander going down towards the 2nd chicane. It's not going to go Ryan Elliott's way just yet. It'd be fairly foolish to try and go too wide through this chicane. Maybe just try and force Newsham out wide, but he hasn't managed to do so. Will he go for the cutback dive up the inside? It's exactly what he's looking at. I think he's just trying to fill the mirrors of Newsham at the moment, not really putting his nose in for too much trouble right now, and that's allowing Carroll to enjoy the podium positions for a bit longer.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this sort of battling really does just really hinder you for lap time. You can see Andy Carroll's already managed to open up about 3 car lengths there to Newsham after that turn 1, and Ryan Elliott being like a wasp over the back of Newsham there. I tell you what, Alex Toth-Jones is bringing himself back into this. If this continues to battle the way it is going, Alex Toth-Jones is going to soon find himself battling for this bottom end of the podium position.
You could well see that, but at the moment what we're seeing is Carroll, Newsham and Edmondson going at it, and Edmondson, I think, it looks like he's... Edmondson, Newsham, Carroll and Elliot going at it. Carroll losing out there as Newsham was up his inside, and I think that Elliot, even though he's got that heavier weight on board, 24 kilograms on the car, it's going to be a hard-fought thing for Carroll to keep him behind, and indeed, I don't think he has, and there's a touch up the inside there. Elliot showing his nose maybe where it didn't belong. We saw Brennan doing it a little bit before. Alex Toth-Jones getting hung out to dry potentially as well. As it's hard to call here who you're going to look at now. It's Elliot going through on Carroll, McIntyre going through on Rurik, but they're nearly 4 wide.
Yeah, look at Brennan on the outside. I believe he's actually pushing Jack Mac up the inside because he knows them will both have the inside line. Brilliant move and brilliant reading of the traffic there by Brennan, and this is all going to help get them forward in the traffic if they work like that through the rest of the pack.
Yeah, what a time for my stream to start slightly lagging. I couldn't see which one, who was who there as Brennan goes through on Carroll now. So Carroll a bit of a cork in the bottle, I fear, that's just been popped because he's now just falling down the order, isn't he? He did fantastically well for 7 minutes of this race, to be fair, or 6.5 minutes of this race to be in the podium position. But now it seems that the rest of the pack of the quicker drivers have caught up. He seems to have sort of just be relatively happy with going down and letting them through, maybe just trying to keep on the backside and achieve a top 10 position. That would be a fantastic achievement by him. Looking at Maxi Rurik and Alex Toth-Jones, though, again, 2 drivers have got fantastic 1-lap pace between them, but the racing hasn't quite gone their way so far. You said Toth-Jones is rescuing this evening, well, it's not quite rescued yet because he's still just outside the top 10. And if he shows his nose there's going to be contact. He managed to get the car stopped just about. I think there was contact, and here comes Carroll.
Yeah, Carroll's going to have the inside line here, going up into the chicane, but almost with too much speed, look. Nearly caught onto the back of Maxi Rohrig there, and that's definitely not where he needed to be. Maxi Rohrig with a huge sideways moment, a massive slide, somehow managing to actually keep the gap about the same. So, outstanding performance there by Maxi Rohrig. And there's also a change for 5th and 6th place with Brennan overtaking Jack Mack. Jack Mack said he didn't necessarily think he had the speed and was seen in the previous race. Brennan has got some serious pace here this weekend. So yeah, definitely a case of Brennan's the one on the move and the one to look out for, because the pace he's got might see him close that gap up onto the likes of Elliot and Newsham for the podium.
Luke Weston going up the inside of Johnson by the looks of it into the turn number 1, and then the first chicane is actually a little bit of I wouldn't say controversy, but we always thought that turn number 1 was the chicane. But actually, you pointed out just before we went live, Dave, that it's actually just before it, isn't it? It's the kink to the right, but I don't think that anybody really counts that as turn number 1 here at Imola, because it's pretty much flat for everybody, isn't it? Doesn't mean it's not a corner though, to be fair, even if it is flat. Through the second chicane now, Weston keeping ahead in 10th position. I think Carroll just went a touch wide there. Maybe that'll allow Weston to catch back up. But to be fair, wow, we're already 8.5 minutes through this second race. And if you haven't tuned in before, we need your suggestions for driver of the day. I've already got someone in my mind who I'm thinking about, but we also want to take your opinions on board. So make sure you get involved in the chat to see who will win the Power Max Valeting kit for driver of the day this evening, because it's very important and one that you guys can influence at home.
Yeah, definitely. All we're looking for is just one name to be thrown into the pot, and we'll sort of get the gist of what's going on in the comments and our own opinions ourselves, and decide a driver of the day. At the moment, it's a very, very difficult decision, Tom, so I'm hoping that some people get commenting and make our jobs a little bit easier there.
Yeah, indeed. I think Max Edmondson, for me, is a driver who's done very well. He's come 4th and 2nd, and he's always been involved in the action and not really done anything too dirty either, which is always nice. Obviously, Stapleford doing a fantastic job in this one. Ryan Elliott with that ballast on board, 24 kilograms, 2nd place and currently 4th, doing brilliantly with all that weight on board as well. Callum Newsham in 3rd place currently, maybe didn't have the race 1 that he wanted. And obviously Jordan Brennan, the way he's carving through the field now as well. But there's a whole host of drivers you can maybe argue for driver of the day, and as we said, we want to get your opinion on it. Things have just started to calm down just a touch, haven't they, as Elliot climbs all over the curves. But I mean, you're the driver coach here, Dave. What is Imola like with the ballast on board, those 30 or 24 kilograms on board? Is it a big hindrance?
So the only, really for me, the big part that plays a big part, the bit that Ryan Elliott's actually coming up to now, this left-hander, we saw the drive that Edmondson's had out of this corner, manages to get a little bit tighter, get the power down. That's, that little bit of lack of weight, that's what Jordan Brennan will have the big advantage on Ryan Elliott over. If he can get the traction out of that corner, get on the power up that hill, that's his main key area. But also the second to last braking zone, you come over the right hand crest very blind down towards the left hander, and you've got to be super late and committed on the brakes, but then off them early to allow the nose to turn in on the car. That's another place where I'd imagine the weight is really trying to push you on. But I tell you what, for me, Jordan Brennan here is looking like the real sort of person coming through the pack here. He's close right on the back of Ryan, but the pace difference that he seems to have here, this might not be too much of a battle here. He was half a second faster than anyone on the track last lap. So yeah, very, very good drive at the moment by Jordan.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a touch there from Elliot, and also a touch there by Brennan as well, as we start looking at Brennan from the rear view of Ryan Elliott. And I've seen a few people in the Facebook chat saying that Jordan Brennan should be the driver of the day. So at the moment, Jordan's getting their vote, that's for sure. And we'll keep an eye out on that. But look at this, the slipstream effect now. Even with those 24 kilograms on board, Callum Newsham going defensive. Isn't going to be a George Russell, Valtteri Bottas moment. Hopefully not, as they go into the first chicane. It's a good overtake there by Ryan Elliott around the outside. He keeps it nice and clean on the exit as well, not running too wide. And I think Callum Newsom's going to be under a little bit of a threat here, or is he going to go on the offensive? I think I would advise him to go on the offensive, because otherwise Brennan's going to have a fantastic opportunity to get the overspeed on both of them. Newsom misses the first apex. Ryan Elliott goes wide. They're going to go into the hairpin now, side by side. Again, Brennan just biding his time, perfectly positioned to try and take advantage of any mistake, and he's almost seen one made there. As Newsom goes past Elliott, they're still side by side. I think Brennan's trying to tuck himself up the underside of another driver. In fact, he has, and he's going past Ryan Elliott now if he can hold it and carry that momentum, but it is so hard. Newsom still ahead of these two now, but look at that slide, a fantastic catch there by Brennan. He's losing out to Maxi Rurik.
Yeah, I mean, he's just Jack McIntyre there, just got past him there. But I don't blame you for holding that slide around that corner on the AstroTurf and then on the grass, and still to keep the lock on and a load of power as well. I can't quite believe he held that, if I'm honest there, Jack. But yeah, let's see if he can get his head back down, get back past Jack. We've seen the pace he's got. He just needs to try and work his way back through the pack. He's been quite calculated so far. You can tell he didn't want to particularly take the risks. It just didn't lend itself to being in the right position.
Sometimes you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you've got that overspeed, if you've got a clean exit, you sort of have to show your nose. Otherwise, you're just going to ruin your run completely. You'd have to come off the throttle for a good 2 or 3 seconds just to allow for the fact that your drivers ahead of you aren't getting out the corner as well. And now they've gapped each other just a touch more. Brennan's got back ahead of McIntyre. He really needs to try and focus on picking off the drivers one by one. He tried to wait for the two of them to settle it between themselves. It didn't quite come off for him. He couldn't see which way to go. He couldn't pick the driver, because it's very hard, isn't it, Dave, when they're driving like that, to pick the driver to hunker up behind, to pick the one who's going to be making the move stick. Because if your gamble doesn't pay off, then it won't be your day. But it looks like he's had another contact with Elliot. He tried to nudge his way back up the inside. McIntyre's gone through on Elliot and Brennan, but Rurik has gone through on Brennan this time, and I am correct in saying that this time. Newsom's driving away with it at the moment, but all of a sudden McIntyre's gotten ahead of this little four-way battle between himself, Elliot, Rurik and Brennan.
Yeah, I would agree there. Unfortunately, that was a case of he gave Ryan Elliott the slightest of taps, and Ryan went, well, if you're going to tap me, I'm going to tap you back. So in the gravel he went, and that's the end of that. But the pace Jordan's got, for me, 5 minutes left of the race, he's probably boiled up a bit now. So he's going to probably, be a bit more aggressive, really push the car to see what it's got. And look at how close the pack is still with 5 minutes to go. We've got Callum, Jack, Ryan Elliott, Maxi Rurik, all within about a 2-second bracket here. So I tell you what, if this is going to be anything like what's going to be like at the end of the race, Jack, I can't put on who is going to be on the podium here.
No, exactly, and I'm still thinking of that driver at the round, to be honest. And Jordan, if we see him get through, I think if we see him recover now, and he gets through to maybe that top 5 cleanly and efficiently within the next 5 minutes, I think it's hands down driver of the day, in my opinion.
I mean, just the hold alone for me, it's done and dusted. I mean, coming from a rally background, that was just the highlight of the race. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, if Jordan can get his head down and work his way through this pack, it's been a very, very good drive. Max Edmondson, though, as well, also been an outstanding drive. Robbie, brilliant result to turn around his race weekend. Having not the best of race once, but pulling himself back up into a reverse grid race position. Very, very difficult to choose from. But as you said, Brennan's definitely in the running here. If he can get himself calculating through the pack, maybe just calculate them decisions a bit more clear, maybe into the hairpins instead of trying to brave it around the corners that are quite quick, that will be impressive to see.
Yeah, I think it depends really. If Brennan doesn't really get that sort of ever finish it off sort of thing, get his toe across the line and make those moves stick from here on out, really, I think Edmondson probably would still be my vote for the evening, but only because Brennan, he's the most exciting driver out on circuit, I think, at the moment. There's no doubt about that, and we love to get drivers, with the pundits up on their seats and up on their feet, and out of their seats, and the viewers excited at home as well. So Brennan doing exactly that. I just want him to get it across the line and to make the moves stick and consistent. He's trying it everywhere, isn't he? Even around the outside. into the slow chicane. He's going wide. The hold, the car control is all there from Jordan Brennan. He just needs to get that last little bit, doesn't he? He just needs to get the positions he deserves from the race pace that he's had.
Yeah, he doesn't. You can just see there the difference on the brakes there into that left-hander. You know, that's Maxi Rohrig with quite a lot more weight on board. John Brennan to brake that much later and get the car stopped that much more aggressively. But yeah, we're just starting to see Callum Newsham here really starting to eke out away from sort of the Ryan Elliott and Maxi Rohrig here. And Jack McIntyre is just about holding on to him as well. So really strong drive as we see a bit of lag there, I believe, from Maxi Rohrig. A bit of that what we call rubber banding effect where the car goes backwards and forwards. Jordan Brennan's actually having to almost calculate where Maxi's car's going to be rather than where it is.
He's all over the back of him as well, isn't he? As Maxi goes defensive into the second chicane. It's unfortunate. It's difficult, isn't it? But that's a huge move up the inside of the second apex of the second chicane. They're going to be side by side. That means that Rohrig will have the inside for the hairpin. That's a huge move by Brennan. He just put him off a little bit, and he's still got the momentum going around the outside. They're both sliding. They're both getting their back end out just ahead, as well as McIntyre, Elliot going side by side. We haven't had a chance to look at that. Now we do. McIntyre up the inside of Elliot, and I think that's a place dispossessed there. A little bit of a nudge. Elliot goes. In fact, it's not Elliot. It's Newsham. This is the podium positions. It's Newsham, and then Elliot. Is that Newsham going wide? It is. It's hard to keep up with here, and they're falling back. Maxi Rohrig is now behind Jordan Brennan.
Yeah, I mean, a very, very similar big sideways moment there for Newsham that we saw from Brennan. Another excellent hold, even longer on the grass by Callum Newsham there. I think that was just the slightest of taps by McIntyre up the inside that just put him onto the green. And once you were on the green, a lack of traction and just lost the back end. But fair play from keeping his foot in. Brennan now up into 5th place. Jack McIntyre up into 3rd, but 2nd place Edmondson and Robbie Stapleford, they're gone. They're up the road. Unfortunately, we haven't seen anything of Robbie Stapleford.
No, we haven't since he's taken the race lead. He's, we've only got a minute left as we're looking at Luke Weston going up the inside of Carroll, who has only bled possessions, but it's a fantastic move. But it's not been stuck, has it? Because Luke Weston is now had the cutback performed on him by Carroll. This battle is going on. We've been seeing some brilliant battles for about 3rd place, but this is just as impressive down at the bottom end of the order here. Weston, Dorman, and Carroll as well. But it just goes to show, no matter where you look, no matter what sort of your level of speed, there's some brilliant racing to be had here at VRRC League of Champions, and also some fantastic prizes up for grabs as well as Weston gets through on Carroll, but Carroll's not done. He's trying to run over those sleeping policemen to get his nose at the inside, but here goes Dorman, a huge hit up the inside of Carroll there. It means he's gone sending onto the outside gravel trap, and all of a sudden that battle has settled back down thanks to a little bit of contact.
Yeah, that was definitely a statement there, just saying get doored, wasn't it?
That's one.
Yeah. So yeah, Ryan Elliott here as on screen in 4th place. I'm starting to wonder whether he's thinking whether he's got a chance here to get onto the back of Jack McIntyre and do a last move on the last lap onto the podium step. He is really giving it everything there. You saw him going very, very sideways, very loose. But McIntyre, you know, he knows how to drive. He knows how to do a championship. And I tell you what, he's going to be a tough person to get past.
He will indeed. Yeah, McIntyre is actually 2nd place in the championship, isn't he? And we saw Ryan Elliott come 2nd in the first race, and McIntyre came 3rd. All of a sudden, it's McIntyre in 3rd and Elliott in 4th. So they sort of switched over positions. So if anything, at the end of this, there might not be that much to choose between them, but there's been a lot to choose between Robbie Stapleford and the rest of the field as he takes the checkered flag for race number 2 here this Tuesday evening in the AOC Gaming League of Champions, powered by VRRC Ginetta Super Cup. It's a mouthful to say, but Stapleford won't care because he's taking the victory. Edmondson in 2nd. McIntyre took the last place on the podium. Elliott and Brennan round out the top 5.
Yeah, you know what? A huge disappointment there for Callum Newsham to lose out on the very last moments of the race there. You know, quite a big blow there, but it happens. It's racing. Callum will know that, but it's definitely still not championship over.
It absolutely isn't. No, as we're starting to see the rest of the drivers bleed over the line now. It's been an exciting evening. My voice is already going, to be honest, and I think we're going to be probably having a chat to a few of a few similar drivers, maybe only actually the one who's ended up on the podium, hasn't it? Because we'll start off with first place man Robbie Stapleford. Robbie, are you there?
Hello, I'm here.
That was a fantastic race by you, wasn't it? It was quiet, but after the last couple of races you've had in the VRRC League of Champions, that's probably something that you wanted to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Just got a really good start and got in front of the four in front of me, and then just slowly pulled away, and then just maintained the gap towards the end, and actually got a clean race for this time. So yeah, which is good. Got some good points, and looking forward to Portugal next week.
Absolutely, yeah. And well, it was a fairly quiet second race, but the first one was pretty much all action for you, wasn't it? You were right in the thick of it, so you know just how hard it's been for the drivers behind. Did you get any views? But talk us what happened, I suppose, through your first race, because the second one, although it was very good for you, was probably a little bit dull to talk about for you.
Well, first race got off really good, and then just struggling to get by Elliot, and then Newsham and Edmondson caught up, and then going down the hill, we just they tried to make it 3 wide, crashed into each other, and just I was the innocent one and got caught up, and yeah, I came off the worst, but yeah, nothing we can do, and yeah, just look forward.
Well, in looking forward, we shall do then. Portimao, what are your thoughts on it? Have you driven much of the circuit? And I suppose how much time are you going to put in to start practicing for it from now?
Never driven the track, and hopefully, yeah, hopefully I haven't got much ballast, and because I know it's quite a quick track, so yeah, I'll probably start practicing pretty soon, just so I know I can finish in a high on this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, congratulations on the second victory of the evening. Obviously, the first for yourself. Before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout-out to before we let you go?
Zancho, Simsport, Simply Race, my mum and dad, and my grandparents.
Oh, very nice. Well done, Robbie. We'll let you go, and we'll have a very quick chat to the people that you shared the podium with, basically. Congratulations.
Cheers.
And that was Robbie Stapleford, Dave. And I suppose we'll hand you over to a driver we've already had a chat to in Jack McIntyre. And, well, Jack's the only other driver that we actually have with us in the comments box, Dave. So why don't you have a chat with him?
Yeah, no bother at all. So, yeah, quite a different vibe there in race 2 compared to race 1, Jack. But yet another great performance and bringing it home on the podium.
Yeah, I'm surprised with that one, to be fair. Starting way back, in 8th-ish position, I think it was. I knew that was going to be tough, and I just had to play it smart. So I got lucky a few times and got a few places just because others were going off. But then I think I made a lot of decisions there to pull back out of things and just wait, and that worked out in the end. I managed to get up into third, and then as soon as I did, and I had Ryan behind me, it was just head down and try and put in some poly laps, and yeah, managed to stay ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was giving you the credit during the commentary, saying that I regard you as a really strong championship driver who thinks of the bigger picture, and that race proved it. What you were saying there about backing out of moves that maybe wouldn't necessarily work. That's what it requires to sort of build a championship. But saying that, it is a very short championship. It's only a sort of a 4-weekend dash, if you like, made up of 8 races. So does that change that strategy a little bit? Might we see a slightly more aggressive Jack going into the last round? Or do you reckon it's paying off and you'll keep the same approach?
Yeah, I don't think I'll change it too much. It depends on the ballast that I've got for next week and what the pace is, really. I think that dictates it. If I manage to be able to get the pace to go for a pole in quali and then drive out front, then it'll be, turn the aggression back on and go for some wins. But if not, I think it's probably safer just to stay out of trouble and recognise where you can make little gains and hopefully not lose too much if you're lacking on pace.
Well, I can tell you now, Jack, that you're actually sitting second in the championship at the moment, just behind Ryan Elliot by 5 points. So you brought yourself very much into a championship contention after the 3rd round there. That's got to be hopeful for the overall. Yeah,
that's really good. Chuffed with that. I think going into this round, I certainly didn't expect 2 podiums. So yeah, got to be really happy with that. It's second highest ballast next week. It's going to be tough. I think Portimao's probably going to be a bit of a brutal track with a lot of extra weight. So yeah, might be another recovery drive next week from the start, but yeah, see how it goes. I'll give it my all.
Great racing tonight, Jack, and good luck going into Portimao, especially in turn 1.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
And that was Jack McIntyre, 3rd place. Now, the reason why I sort of hesitated handing over to you, Dave, there was because I was actually looking for our driver of the round and 2nd place man, Max Edmondson. But unfortunately, he hasn't joined us in the interview waiting room. So if you are watching this, Max, then 1, where are you? And 2, congratulations on getting the driver of the round. And he's actually currently put himself into 3rd place, as you can see on your screens at the moment. So great drive by Max.
Yeah, I could be wrong. He was in the interview booth waiting to be interviewed, but he's disappeared out the server and the interview booth. So that would suggest to me probably a disconnection of the internet, which, isn't a great thing. But I tell you what, at least it didn't do that during the races.
No, yeah, it picked its timing well, didn't it? There, I would say. But to be fair, I suppose we could talk about the reason why maybe we picked Max. In essence, for me, the reason why we're voting for him is because of a solid 2nd race. He really put the 1st race behind him because he didn't necessarily have the pace, did he? He just tried to, make sure he was getting his laps in. And then the sort of 1st race, he did fall backwards a little bit, but it wasn't like he dropped like a stone, did he? He sort of still there or thereabouts, holding his own, and ended up finishing in 4th place, which is a pretty good going. And that 2nd race, he was driving away with it, wasn't he?
Yeah, for me, it was a bit of a similar scenario to Maxi Rohrig, a very, very consistent driver that was reasonably calculated during the weekend. He was thinking of the bigger picture. He drove through the grid and had some great results. Jack Mac, also another serious championship contender. You saw, he thought, great job. We thought he did a great job. And yet for Max Edmondson still to outscore him even further, I don't think we can go far wrong with that one. Also, I mean, look at the feedback he's had in the chat channels. A lot of people supporting for Max. There was also a lot of people for Callum. It was a very difficult decision, but fair play to Callum for holding that drift as well. Fair, hats off.
Yeah, and I think if Jordan Brennan, well, we said it in the race, and if Jordan Brennan had managed to actually keep the moves that he was attempting, then we probably would have given it to him, but he didn't really ever quite get it nailed, did he? Which means maybe he can come back next week and prove us wrong at Portimao. I suppose before we go, Dave, I suppose we have to look forward to Portimao a little bit. It's I suppose you've probably driven the track a lot more than I have. What are your thoughts of it from what we've seen in the first 3 rounds? What can we expect?
It's awful.
Oh, okay,
absolutely awful. It's one of them tracks for me where it's hard enough to drive the track, never mind to race it. It's all about the huge undulations of the track. You've got the last corner, which is just absolutely committed. The front end starting to push a little bit wide, and you come down into turn 1, absolutely flat chat. Can't see your apex, can't see your braking point, and you've just got to commit to where you think it is. I say it's awful. It's one of them. It's probably a bit like the Isle of Man. It doesn't take any prisoners, but when you get it right and when you get it hooked up, it is probably the racetrack to drive, and I would do anything to race it in real life.
That was a very conflicting start to the end of that statement, I would say. But no, we'll probably seal it out, Dave, there. Well, thank you very much for joining me, and thank you all for very much for joining us this evening in a fantastic couple of races here at Imola. You've been brilliant with your comments in the chat as well. We take them all on board, of course we do. My name has been Jack Oliphant. I've been alongside me in the virtual commentary box has been Dave Marshall. It's been the AOC Gaming League of Champions Season 2, powered by VRRC, Ginetta Super Cup Round 3. We'll see you next time at Portimao. Keep it pinned and keep it subscribed to VRRC.
Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Parker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.
Brennan.